ashes melted back to life. Done my time and served my sentence. Dress me up and watch me die. If it feels good, tastes good, it must be mine. Dynasty decapitated, you just might see a ghost tonight. And if you don't know now, you know. I'm taking back the crown. I'm all dressed up and naked. I see what's mine and take it.
All right, that music can mean only one thing. I have been summoned. Therefore, we are back for another hell of a show. We're going to have a great time on this one. Tonight, we've got a great guest ready and waiting. But before we get started, I want to remind everyone, please, please, please make the move over to the YouTube channel for all of our content over there, because a certain other platform, the Book of Face, is not playing very nice over there. And so we're going to be moving everything over to YouTube so that everyone has a chance to go ahead and see all the content and comment as well, which is very big, because Book of Face is having some fun on that one. So over there to YouTube, watch what's going on. Don't miss out on great content like we're having tonight with the guest that I'm going to have on here. So we're going to bring him up here and go ahead and introduce him and then have some fun. So here is Ed Davis with Finish Line Comics.
Hi, how's everybody doing? I'm Ed Davis from Finish Line Comics, and I write a series called Immortal Era. My story takes place 200 years in the future in a post-apocalyptic world where no one can die. So everyone in this world is immortal, but nobody has powers or abilities. They continue to age. They still get sick. So we're not looking at a world populated with ageless vampires or superheroes. Instead, it's a world where a decapitated head still has to function in society. So it centers on a group of 5 underground dwellers who are forced to live underground, where the outcasts of this society have to go. They're out seeking relics from the past so they can discover why people became immortal to begin with, because their ultimate goal is to restore the natural life cycle and save humanity by killing them.
There you go. Okay, look, everyone that's watching this right now, go ahead and just sit back, take that breath that I know you've been holding the whole time he's been talking on this, and go ahead and go, where is it and how do I find it? Because we're going to be getting into that, because there's actually a campaign right now that you can go to. But if that doesn't get you excited in that opening right there, I don't know what else is going to. Man, that's just like a commercial right here. We're going to say, but wait, there's more, because we're going to be talking a little bit about this as we go along through here and learn a little bit more about Ed himself and his project. So it's going to be very interesting. So thank you for being here, and thank you for that energetic opening on there. I mean, I'm already backing it, but I just want to go back and like unback and back again, just because I've got the energy now.
Well, thank you. Right now, like I said, we have a campaign going. It's got 2 things featured in it. So if you're a brand new reader to the series, you've never heard of it before in your life, you can get a trade that collects issues 1 through 6 together. It also has some bonus content. We saved some extra pages just for that, for the trade. So it has a special epilogue where we see the fate of one of our characters. I don't want to go into too much because it throws into spoiler territory. And then also a few extra splash pages that were done by Caesar that didn't work with the original flow, but now in the expanded one, they work really well. And for those who have been reading all along and they don't want to have to wait, I have issue 7 in this campaign as well that will launch a brand new story arc and get things started in new and crazy ways.
Oh, definitely looking forward to that. And while he's been talking, I've got the ticker at the bottom down here that y'all see going, and that's the project. But I made it even easier because it's embedded in all the feeds where this is being played out in all the different platforms. So whenever we're done with the show, all you got to do is go back, click that link, and you go directly to the campaign. How much easier is that? You don't have to memorize anything. There's not a test afterwards. Simply click and run. You go over there and have fun with it. So definitely remember to do that, but wait until the end of the show because there's a lot more information coming along. So you've got a great series going on here. You've already got, like you said, 1 through 6 is on there. You've got 7 is on the campaign right now. You've got the trade, which is great to have for anyone who is brand new to this and just wants to go ahead and drop in, and do a fresh start. The trade is a great way to do that. Yeah. For those of us who have been, backing it as much as we possibly can, the floppies are great because we can keep up with that as it goes along. But this story has got a lot of moving parts. If ever I've heard of an onion type story with a lot of layers, this one's definitely got it, because you start feeling like you're more than connected to the characters that are in there. And what I mean by that is it's got a very, the the best way I can explain it, it's got like a Mad Max feel to where they are, as far as the world around them and everything. That's the way that I kind of saw this whenever I first started reading into it. And the fact that they can't die is very interesting, especially whenever you see a head that's walking around on like crab limbs. That's one of the leaders of this underground group. That right there, that's awesome to go ahead and have something new in there. But each character has so much. What's the word I'm looking for? It's just so much built into them. The development that's into them is so huge, but also so different from one another. And it's really cool because it's almost like seeing puzzle pieces put together. So my first question is, how do you come up with not only the story, but how do you come up with so many characters that shouldn't fit together and actually do?
I think that was the first thing when I was writing the story that I really focused on, was I wanted each character to have their own personality and have depth. Because one thing you get in all kinds of stories is just flat characters. And when there's flat characters and I don't care about them and want to know anything about them, that's when I kind of put the story away. So I wanted to build characters that would basically connect in this world. And yeah, they shouldn't be together, because we're taking a bunch of children who were abandoned. They weren't, natural blood, but they were raised as a family. And we have this kind of things that would come along with a family. So we have siblings that are fighting. And if, I have kids in the house and you hear the same kind of arguments going along, but, the arguments aren't about saving the world. It's just, your basic mundane stuff. So I wanted to show that even in this crazy Mad Max world, we have the mundane sibling fights that happen every day. And for me, I basically wrote an in-depth origin of every single character before I started putting the story together, because it was originally going to be written as a novel. And in that, you have a lot more time to build characters. But I wanted each one to have their own personality and their own origin, because all we know is that they were abandoned and left for dead in this subway system. And where did they come from? Why is that important? And how will it lead to the ultimate ending of the story? Those are all the pieces I wanted to build first before I started building the story, which I had the basic outline of where everything needed to go, but I needed to find a way the characters also fit into this world.
And that's great that you do that. And you've got some characters that are in there. I mean, one that comes to mind right off the bat is Father. There's not a lot of backstory to him, but there's a lot of foreshadowing that he has a past in some of the things that are happening in a couple of the issues, especially whenever he fights one of the main villains, which is Koa. I absolutely love that because it's blade on blade fight. I love the knife fights anyway, but we're talking about big knives that are being used. Plus, Father had, I think I counted like 15 or 16 different knives, swords and stuff that he has on him, not including the knives. I mean, that's a lot of stuff to hang on to there, but he's a big guy and can hold it. And I enjoy the fact that you're not giving too much information, because it's almost like fishing, basically. You've thrown the line out there, you've got the lure on there, but you're not allowing it to just go ahead and drop in and be done for, fishing for the day. You actually want to kind of reel it around a little bit. And that's what I see happening, because as I'm reading this thing, I'm like, okay, where's the next issue? Because I got to find out what's happening with Father alone. I mean, there's other characters, of course, but Father is one of the main ones. And I'm like, what is his backstory? So how many people have contacted you kind of going, okay, you got to tell me what's going on with this guy. What's happening? I mean, do you get that a lot?
I get asked, especially when if I'm doing a con that's a multi-day con, and you get those people that'll buy the book on day one, then they come back on day two and they have a whole barrage of questions that they're throwing at you. And those are the ones like, okay, what is this all about? Because we don't know much about him in the beginning, but we're building and building his story. And then issue 9 is basically, it's a supersized issue that's pure Father backstory. And we find out everything because Koa comes in and they have a history, and we find out what this history was, how Father connects with him, and just everything that led him to the underground where he ultimately landed.
That is very cool. And the fact that you threw in it wasn't good enough to throw in like cybernetic people who, couldn't die and everything. They're cannibals on top of that. So it's it's very much a fight or flight scenario whenever you run into them, because they don't back down, because they're not afraid to die, of course, because they can't pretty much, and they just
Yeah.
go ahead and put extra parts on them if they go ahead and get that way. So
Mhm.
how do you come up with an idea that you're going to do cybernetic cannibals to throw into there on top of everything else you've been doing?
For me, it just was kind of the natural way this world would go. Because the questions that come at me at the table is like, well, why would they care if they can't starve to death? And I tell them, all right, imagine you can't starve to death, but you haven't eaten for months. Do you want to live in that constant pain? So these people, they're basically at the primal level of existence. They want to get food, they want to eat, they want to survive. They're almost going back to like the earliest humans that existed on the world. And yeah, you're going to lose limbs because in this world, what bullets are scarce. So everybody's got knives and swords, and that's why they're fighting with them. Because that's the other question. It's like, oh, well, why wouldn't they just shoot at each other? It's like, well, there are bullets, but you're going to spare those bullets, and the weapons take a time to reload. So you shoot your rounds, you have to wait for the recharge before you can shoot again. So it's kind of like taking it back to the way they had to fight in the American Revolution. You had to load the musket, shoot it, and you don't have a lot of time for reload, so you slap on that bayonet and off you go to fight. So it's the same kind of way in this world, and you're going to lose limbs. So if you do, this world has the technology to rebuild something. So, okay, now I have a cybernetic arm and back into battle I go because I'm still hungry when it's all said and done. And that last encounter still left me starving. So I'm still out for this ultimate quest to feed your stomach and stop that, unending pain that they're in.
Exactly, exactly. And another observation that I had on this too that I wanted to kind of discuss is it also has a feel of Dungeons and Dragons. And what I mean by that is there are so many different characters, and it's almost like anyone who reads this thing can automatically connect to one of the characters, and there's their story that goes with them the entire way. I don't remember any of them that you've strayed away from enough to where it's like, okay, we've forgotten about this particular character, so I
Yeah.
guess nothing's going to happen with them. They get taken along with the story. They may not have the prominent role in that particular issue, but they're definitely there and they're not forgotten. So my question is, how do you create a world like this where you're dealing with that many characters and all, and you still are able to keep all of them at the top and no one is actually overshadowing one or the other?
That's one of the trickier things to do, is to make it where each character has enough to do where they're not just like, okay, bland side character. And in the beginning, I felt that Kimberly kind of was the overshadowed character, but I knew she had a large role in issue 6. And it was kind of like, you got to wait for it. She's going to bring the redemption because she kind of comes off as just the snooty pampered brat in the beginning, but I always had more in store for her. So it's kind of like, you got to wait. And what's funny is, like you said, people identify with different characters, and I get more people than I would ever imagine going, oh my gosh, I just love Kimberly because she's in this world, but she's still a diva and she's a fashionista, and they love that about her. And that's probably what I didn't like about her when I was writing her, but people connect with that because even in this grim world, she's like, I want a good dress, I want to look good out there. But when she's put into the battle, thrown into the fire, essentially, she's willing to do what she needs to do to save this world as well.
And I completely agree, because one of the characters that comes to mind directly off of that is Ari, because she is so tomboyish, and at one point she has to wear a dress to go and to the top world. And it was hilarious because it didn't take much. It was only like a page or two that was on there of the dialogue on there. But of course, you were talking about the banter before, and this is that everyday banter because she was upset that she had to wear a dress to go up, to the up top world. And the reason I bring up that point is because she is a tomboy. She knows how to take care of business whenever it comes down to her business time. Trust me, this is a mature comic for a reason, and she's one of the main reasons it is. And for her to actually put on a dress and have to act that role, that was awesome to be able to see that, because it's like seeing a whole new character at that point that you had introduced, even though it was still her. Just she was having to apply the role to take care of some business up top, shall we say?
Yeah. Yeah, and that was kind of that. Some of the different beats in the story with the characters were ones I had planned right from the beginning, and I always knew she was going to have to get taken out of her comfort zone because she's down there. She's almost in like punk rock gear when she's down there fighting, and like you said, full tomboy. She could care less what her hair looks like. She's not worried about what her outfit is. It's ripped. Who cares? I'm just using it to fight off the cannibals that keep trying to break in our village and eat us every night. So what do I got to look good for? And when she finds out she has to, because basically that becomes her camouflage.
Yes.
They said, you got to go up there. If you go up there looking like this, everyone's going to spot you and notice you, and you're not going to be able to hide. So you got to wear this dress to disappear on the surface, because when you're underground living in an abandoned subway, only one person down there even cares about fashion, but she has to go up to a world where these people, they consider themselves more elite, because even though it's pure chance you win a lottery spot to even be allowed to be born on the surface, they would feel vastly superior to everyone around them. And that's why they call the underground dwellers cockroaches. They're like, oh, just another cockroach from below. They throw insults at them. So if she walked up looking like what they call a cockroach, they would spot her and she would probably be hunted down. So she had to put on the dress and look nice, and that became her camouflage.
Now, we're going to show a couple of pieces of art while we're talking as well, because I wanted to bring up about artists. Because, and of course, this will show some of the characters and things like that. And it's in different ways, because these are some of the covers that are on there too, and different styles that are there. But as far as the interior art, has that been the same artist the entire time throughout this whole thing?
It has, yeah. I've been working with the same art team from issues 1 through 6. We actually brought in a new colorist for issue 7. So this cover right here is the first work that she's done with us.
Okay.
So these two covers were done by our newest colorist, and the rest were done by the same, but she got hired at a better job through Netflix. So like, I understand. You go chase that, but don't forget to pitch our book when you're there.
Exactly.
So the interior artist, though, Cesar Oliveira, he's done everything with me on this, and we're actually launching a new project together next year. So I'm working with him again on my upcoming project.
Nice. Now, my biggest question about, because I wanted to bring up about the interior artist on this, because how difficult is it to convey what's in your head that you want to have on there, on paper the right way and everything? How difficult is it for you two to actually put that together and convey that between each other? Because there's some very detailed art that explains everything that you didn't even have to have the lettering at some points. I mean, I'm looking at it going, I don't even need the words. I know what's going on with this, but the words are great to help out.
Yeah, I think with that, it took a few issues to really find our groove. Because in the beginning, when we were working together, I write ridiculously long details. I mean, I'm not Alan Moore. I'm not writing pages and pages and describing a doorknob for 10 paragraphs. But I give the details, like, okay, in the background, we're going to see this, and I have to give him those specific details. But as we've been working together longer, because now we've been working together for 3 years, he kind of knows what's in my head a lot more. So if you looked at the script for issue 1 as opposed to the script for issue 7, there's not quite as much detail, because when we first see the picture of the underground in Hope Village, that was like 2 pages of description from me, as well as pictures. I had to take pictures of abandoned looking subway systems and cars, so he could really know, because there's also that cultural gap, because he's in Brazil. And I did one where I said, okay, he's walking through a strip mall, and he goes, I have no clue what a strip mall is. So I just went out and I'm like, okay, let me snap some photos. And then he's like, okay, I understand now, we call it this here. So you have to get through those little cultural barriers. But we have a good groove now, and and in the beginning it was, he was going to do exactly what I said and make sure that it was exactly as it was written. But now he said, I think something like this might add better to the narrative. So he's willing to give some input. And since we've been working together for so long, I trust him to know that he's going to still do what's best for the book.
And that is awesome, because you can definitely see, like I said, it's rare to see where the lettering, the panels, the artwork, where everything flows as well as it does, especially whenever you're dealing with as much action happens in this. But not only that, but the scenes where they're the banter and it's not blank scenery behind, or it's not, just one character where it's a very close up and you can't see anything else because they had no idea what to put in there. It actually conveys that emotion at that time. So I have to give extreme kudos to you and the artist for being able to do that in there, because that's very difficult to do, especially whenever you're dealing with so many, so much a different range of emotion in this book.
Yeah, and that was something I think about issue 3 when I think of that, because issue 3 is definitely kind of the slowest issue. There's no big action scenes or anything that happen. And there's one scene where they're just walking through the city and talking, and it's a lot of exposition in there, and there's huge amounts of dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
But even still, it wasn't just characters walk and talk. I said characters walk. We see people in the background doing this. We see the city lights doing that. And then when he submitted that page to me, when he showed his first pencils of it, I was just blown away. I'm like, wow, you took it to another level. And that's I think where we are now is I'll describe it and then he'll take it up a notch. So it's like, wow, that is just beyond what I would have imagined, and just amazing, because like you said, there's more to focus on instead of the normal tight shot on the characters, so you just see them and leave the backgrounds alone. He does these elaborate backgrounds with so much going on that you could study just that before you even read any dialogue.
Absolutely. Now, of course, this is an ongoing series. We've already established that. My next question is, what do you use for inspiration, while you're coming up with ideas on this? I mean, is there certain music that you listen to? Is there certain, do you watch movies in the background? What do you do?
For me, I'm huge on listening to different music when I'm writing. The genre that I'm really hooked on is post-rock, because it's instrumental, and there's a band, Godspeed You Black Emperor, and they basically say we're music for the apocalypse. So, it's dark, it's brooding, and it's generally, there's no lyrics, because I get lost. If lyrics come on, I lose the focus and I start listening to what's being said. So I generally play things that have no lyrics. I can't do TV because then I'll keep peeking up, and anything that can distract me when I'm writing is going to hurt, because I need to keep my focus on what's happening. Right. So TV is always off. I'll turn the internet off of my phone, and the computer will be in airplane mode so that I can't start browsing the internet. Only if I need to research something, that's at the point I'll turn it back on. Mm-hmm. And I just have that music in the background and just kind of get lost in that. So I'll usually start my writing process by going on a short run to just kind of clear out my head, get everything out, whatever my day at work was or anything else, lose that in the run, and start by playing the music. And I have a playlist that I built through Spotify that has just the music that I write to. And then once I finish the run, at that point, shower off, and then hopefully the ideas are flowing. And some of my best ideas were thought of just in the middle of the run. I'm like, ooh, this would be really good to connect to whatever this is. And music seems to be that great connector. It's something in a song that will connect me to what's happening. So yeah, music's one of the most important things. And I just have to have the right music. And I'll try random playlists. Like, okay, I'll just put on post-rock playlist and see what I can get. Because when you get the same songs over and over again, you need to change it up as well. So I discover a lot of good stuff that way. And that kind of keeps the ideas moving and flowing.
And I love asking that question of all of my guests, because it's a good thing to get the answer on there, because you get to know the people a little bit more. Because I've had some of the creators have actually answered back saying it's like one movie that they'll just keep playing over and over and over, because it becomes white noise to them at that point, because they don't have to pay attention. They already know what's going on, and their subconscious is watching it while they're doing their work. And I'm like, that does make sense whenever you think about it. So that is, I mean, as soon as you mention, if you have a TV show, of course, you're popping your head up going, okay, what was that? I missed that part. And that throws you completely off of your game at that point. I definitely get that. Mm-hmm. But it's got the feel that's on there within this entire series so far is just so, it's not, how do I put this? It's not high octane. Don't get it wrong on that. It's not one of those things that's, action from the first page all the way till, right now and everything. There is storyline parts in there. Like you said, issue 3 is a little more story based than it is with any kind of action or anything, but it doesn't slow down.
Yeah.
It's difficult to explain it until you actually pick it up and read it, which is why y'all going to have to go over there and check out this campaign, because it does have a general, I mean, it has a pulse to it. I can't explain it any other way. It's got a heartbeat that's inside this thing that does not stop. Now that can be from the action sequences. That's easy to do, to have a heartbeat on there. But whenever you're doing the banter, or whenever you're doing a flashback scene and learning about, a little bit of the role, where someone came from, their origin or something like that. And it's just little peaks, not the whole thing. It still has that heartbeat on there. And again, that's very difficult to convey and keep consistent through this many issues, because normally you'll see it in one or two issues and then it gets to the point where it's a burnout. But for whatever reason, it's working on your end. So definitely don't change a thing.
Yeah, I'm trying not to. And I think that's the hard thing, is especially with issue 7, we're starting a brand new story arc. So I got to kind of get the heartbeat going again. And issue 7, like issue 3, is kind of a slowdown issue, because so much happened in issue 6. We have to have the characters' emotional reactions to all those things that happened. It's not just like, okay, all these things happen, let's jump to the next big action scene. So I like to try to build to the big action scenes where they feel earned, because action for the sake of action, at least when I'm writing, it doesn't work. And I know some people can write action better than anything, and I'll flip through the book in no time and enjoy it. But for me, I want it to be kind of that slow build. And I think that's kind of comes from the music I listen to when I'm writing it, because all of these songs are kind of slow build, and then kind of the big explosion in the end. And that's the pace that I try to write at. So for some, they want action quick, because I saw one, I've had people, you get so many different people coming up to your booth when you're working a show. And one guy's like, I just want issue 4 because that looks like it has the most action. I said, it does, but it's worth reading the other ones. And in the end, he just bought issue 4, and I'm not going to tell him, no, I'm not selling you my book. But it's a hard balance, and I'm working on it right now because I'm doing the last touches on issue 10. And it's just, that one has been a battle to write. Issue 9 was like, it exploded out of my hands and I couldn't write fast enough to keep up with the thoughts. And issue 10 is more of one of those slower issues, and those ones are always the hardest ones to write, because you still have to keep a decent pace. Even if it's dialogue heavy, people don't want to just read boring dialogue and lose themselves in it. Like, all right, I'm putting it down because it's too much, because I know I'm wordy when I write, because the comics I grew up with, those were the 80s and 90s comics, and those were super wordy up until the Image started, and then it was splashier and bigger and not as much about as so much dialogue that you could read a comic book and it's going to take you a half an hour. Now it's 5 minutes, flip through, and you're done. And I wanted to kind of go back to the thing where if you invested your money, I want to give you at least a half hour of your time to invest in this book.
Exactly. Now, you mentioned con, because I actually want to ask you a question about that. Is what's one of your more memorable experiences that you've had working a con?
I think for me, the most memorable one that I can think of was it was the San Diego Comic-Con special edition. So it wasn't the full big, media frenzy Comic-Con, but it was also the first con back in California after COVID. And it was such a magic being back in the room with the people who love the same things you love. And it was the most open and warm crowd I've ever sold to, because it wasn't about, this celebrity's down that way and that celebrity's over here. And, here's these expensive toys that I can buy and resell on eBay, because none of those things were there. So it was a pure con where it was just people going because they loved comic books. Maybe they wanted to buy some cool old toys, but they walked into the small press area with an agenda to find new books to read. And they were just so open to the book. And it was one of those things where I thought I brought more than enough, and I had to call my wife and say, hey, I need you to drive me some more books down, because I'm almost sold out of everything. And I've never had an experience like that where it's like almost everybody you pitch to is like, yeah, let me get it. I'll try number 1. Let me give you a shot. And then they're coming back the next day and saying, you know what? I love it. I need some more. And that was just such an incredible feeling, because it also was just that sigh of relief after the lockdown and not being able to have cons and concerts and all those things that kind of keep your normal juices flowing. They all disappeared. So that first one back was just pure magic.
That is awesome, because, and that's right, because with a certain year that we don't name anymore, but yeah, there was nothing going on. And then whenever it did open back up, of course, it was a slow burn opening up. And that was one of the cons, like you said, that opened up and was still very tight on, the rules of what had to be done. But everyone was rushing to the doors because they were so tired of being stuck in their homes.
Yeah.
And they just wanted something new to put in their hands to read, because so many people had given away, digital copies of so much stuff out there. They weren't even selling. They were just trying to keep people from going insane, in their homes.
Yeah.
So to actually have a physical comic in your hand, I can only imagine how much energy was in that place and ready to go. And well, that must have been the perfect place for you at that point.
Yeah, I don't think I can ever match that energy that was in that room that day. Because like you said, people were lining up at the door, not because, oh, we got to go to that Funko booth or we got to go to the Hasbro booth. No, it was, we just want to get some books. We want to meet people. We want to talk with these creators and just be in this world again, because they love comics. We love comics. And for that, stretch of time, it was taken away. And like you said, I was giving away digital copies, my mailing list. I'm like, here's digital copy number 1. Here's the number 2. Just keep reading. Let's, and I ran a Kickstarter during that time as well. So I tried to keep the book going, but nothing quite beats standing in the room with people that have a like mind.
Exactly. Now I got to ask, go ahead and give me 2 creators that you fangirl over.
2 careers?
2 creators that you fangirl
over.
Oh,
2 creators. For me, it's pretty easy. It's Garth Ennis and Neil Gaiman.
Nice.
And, I love Stan Lee, and that's my original reading of comics was the like Marvel trades when I was a kid that my dad would buy for me at the swap meet. But it wasn't until I was in high school, and I had bought a huge stack of that Superman 75. And for a minute, the comic geek was the cool guy, because they're like, oh, you have that Superman book that we need. And there was one fellow comic collector, and he goes, look, I'm not going to pay you what you're charging these jocks for the book, but I got a Sandman number 1. I'll trade you. And I thought, all right, you know what? Let's give it a shot. And that just got me hooked. And from that point on, I was just completely hooked on that universe. Back when DC used to do it, I had my subscription to the book. So it would come in the mailbox every month. I mean, granted, they're probably completely trashed and ungradable copies, not the pristine mint you would have got if you went in a comic shop. But it was that. And then a few years later, when I started reading Preacher, and I just thought, this is different. This isn't just, hero of the month, let's fight kind of thing. Or at that point, annoying crossover events, one after the next. It's like, no, we have a story to tell. It's a finite story. We're going to tell it in the amount of issues that need to be told, and then it's over. And that just changed the game. I thought, you know what? I could write comic books. I could write in this universe, because I don't think I could do the hero of the month or, now this amazing crossover or that one. I couldn't write in that mentality, but to tell the big story that I want to tell in the form of a comic book, and when it's done, it's done. That's what that's where my love came from. And those are the 2 that, I haven't had a chance to meet Garth Ennis, but when I met Neil Gaiman, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to drool all over him, because this has been my favorite writer for years. And instead of talking about his comic book, I told him, I read your books aloud to my class every year. And that just touched him. And he goes, that's the most, he goes, that's the best thing anyone's told me all day. So it's like we both kind of connected in a different way, because I'm like, what am I going to do? I don't want to be like, you're so great, you're so great, you're so great, because they hear that every day. So how do I sound human in this and not just fanboy out? And then he's like, move on, next in line.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I've got to ask now, because you've already set it up and everything, but you being a purist and, going through Sandman and everything, did you watch the Netflix show?
Honestly, I started it, but I think I'm too afraid, because I love the material so much. I think I'm too connected to the comics, and I'm going to just nitpick, and I don't want to be that guy. But I did start it, and the first few episodes I've seen, I do like, and it seems like he really safeguarded his material. So it was good that he was connected. So it's one of those ones I know I'm going to finish. It's just a weekend when I don't have anything going on, I'll just blast through the whole thing, because what I saw was just, it looks like the right vision. And you know, people complain about this and that, like, oh, well, this character wasn't that way in the book and this one wasn't, but the world changes and you want diversity in the world. It's not a bad thing. Exactly. And if that's your only nitpick of the series, then you're falling on deaf ears. If he changed the material and rewrote the story, then I'll hear you, because I love that story so much. If he wanted to change it dramatically, then I would be more offended than, okay, well, this character's not the same way they looked in the book.
No, definitely finish it. You're hitting the nail on the head there. I'm not going to give away anything on there, but as a purist, I'm telling you right now, worth it. Like you've already said, if that's the worst that they could get is some of the diversity and whatever in there, then that's the worst. Other than that, you can tell that Neil definitely was overlooking some people's shoulders on that.
Yeah, that's the best thing, when the creator's that deeply connected, because I watched the Preacher series and it was fine, but it strayed far too much from the book. And I mean, I looked at season 1 and I'm thinking they basically did issue 1 as a whole season. So they were just spinning their wheels. And when they finally got moving, it was too late, because they were already on the cancellation block. So that's why I guess I'm afraid, because Preacher I loved the casting. I thought they got the characters just right, but the story it didn't work for me the way it did in the book. It made me want to go read the comics again. And that a series should be, you know, a companion that works, and it doesn't have to be chained to the source material, but at least respected enough to follow the path that the creator already laid for you.
Absolutely. Cannot agree enough on that statement with that. So if there were a chance that you could contact somebody, you know, Netflix or streaming of another sort or whatever, and had a chance on doing an animated or a live action, which would you rather do with your series?
Yeah, see, that's a question I get asked a lot at the table. And I think if done right, I would love to see a live action of it. But with the particular world that I've built, it would be a very expensive live action. And I'm sure Netflix isn't ready to start throwing piles of money at a source material that's not well known. Because, I mean, here they are reluctant to even renew Sandman for a season 2, and it pulled strong ratings for them. Mm-hmm. So I think for the sake of knowing that my story could get told, I'd go with animation.
That's not bad. I mean, I could definitely see, honestly, I could see it either way. Doing it as a live action, it would really have to be fine-tuned so it's not cookie cutter of some other live action movies that are out there. Because it does kind of, I'm not saying that it mimics it, but it actually has the same feel as some of the other ones that are out there. Mm-hmm. So you have to be careful not to be cookie cutter on that. And I've seen too many people that rush because they have a chance to have it out there, and they do. And that's whenever you look at it going, if you'd have waited just a little bit longer, gotten, you know, a little bit more underneath your belt, or talked to a few different people and gotten some different ideas on it, it probably would have popped a lot harder. But to just have it out there and just have it where it just gets pushed, it's not always the best idea to do.
Yeah, and that's what I see with a lot of the shows. Like you said, they have a feel to them. And the fact that I'm dealing in a post-apocalyptic world, it is a genre that's been done a lot. Mm-hmm. So my thought was, okay, yeah, it's post-apocalyptic. And a lot of times if I'm giving the elevator pitch at the table, I'm like, it's a post-apocalyptic story. You kind of get that eye roll. Like, another one of those. But then when I get to the later parts of the pitch, they're like, okay, never mind. You brought me back in. Mm-hmm. So it's hard, because if done wrong, it would look and feel like too many other things, and people would be one episode in like, nope, I'm done. So I think animation, you could make it more dynamic and kind of give it the right tone to make it work. But I mean, I would love to see it done in any form. Just to see it on the screen in some capacity would be the ultimate compliment to the material.
Mm-hmm. So in your building of this world and getting all this together and everything, what has been your biggest obstacle in making this actually a success and moving forward at a consistent pace?
I think the biggest obstacle was the year 2020, because I released the first book in summer of 2019, and I released the second book in January of 2020. And I had planned out all of these cons and all of these different ways that I was going to promote the book and get it out there. And I was going to travel and do all these things. And then it was just like, nope, rethink it all. And I think in the end, I learned from the experience and gained skills that I would have never had, because even these kind of podcasts and things, in the beginning, I was so nervous. I would just stumble and, fumble through words and sound terrible. So I had to adapt. I had to learn how to come on to shows like this and not make people say like, all right, I'm sick of that mumbling moron, and turn it off in 10 seconds. So it made me adapt. And I think that was actually a strength in a whole year of terrible, there was good things that came out of it. So I had to adapt, and that way I can come on these things. I can talk about a Kickstarter campaign, and now I can also go to those cons and sell it in the real world. So you kind of have the best of both worlds.
Exactly. Now, you mentioned about you got a new project that you're going to be working on.
Yeah.
Will you talk about anything about that, or is that pretty much all you can say? Is I got a new project, and then let everybody?
I can give you the basic elevator pitch for that one. So, through a bunch of weird workings, it ended up becoming a shared universe. But the premise of the story is that there's a mob hitman who dies, and he's recruited by heaven and hell to help bring souls in, because God and the devil know that in the year 2000, they're going to lose. There's not going to be any more souls coming their way. So they're trying to gather as many as they can before the Immortal Era begins. So they're recruiting this mob man, this mobster, and he's first recruited. Well, now I'm going to get into way too much spoiler territory. I almost gave away the end of issue 1. So basically, he's recruited, and it becomes kind of almost a reverse Quantum Leap or Touched by an Angel, where this guy's trying to corrupt souls and bring them down to hell.
Oh, I'm definitely all over that one. Yeah. As soon as you get that one ready to go, let me know, and we'll get you back on and talk about that one for sure. But I'm going to be reviewing that one as well.
Oh, great! Yeah, that one we've started. Actually, the artist Caesar. The way we're doing it is his primary job is still working on Immortal Era to keep that flowing, and then he'll do 6 pages of Immortal Era and 2 pages of Corruptor, and then 6 and 2, so that he doesn't have to rush Corruptor. We can take our time, and we're hoping for a spring launch next year.
Nice, very nice. So, what is your kind of schedule for Immortal Era? What are we looking at for next year on what's going to be launched?
For next year, it should be a January or February launch for issue 8. The artwork's completely done. We're just sending it to get colored. So I told her, let me get through this campaign, and then you can start coloring issue 8. But all of the pencils and inks are done. And issue 9 is about a third of the way done. So I'm hoping that next year I can get 4 books out, 3 of those being Immortal Era and 1 being the new Corruptor book.
Nice. That would be a very busy year for you right there, which would be nice.
Yeah.
So one thing I always like to ask in a closing question with all my guests, and it's a really good one to ask because it kind of gets you thinking on a different level. If you're at a con or even at home or anything like that, and someone contacts you and says, I need advice on something, I'm going to say, as far as creators, what's the best advice you can give to a new creator coming into the industry?
I think the best advice is to seek advice, because when I released the first issue, I literally knew nothing about releasing a comic book. I was fortunate that the colorist that I was using had released comic books for bigger studios. She had worked on colors for some of the Doctor Who comics. So she knew things in the industry. But without her, I would have been completely lost. Like, I would have had this book ready to go, and I wouldn't know how to get it released, how to network with people. My first Kickstarter was basically funded by the goodwill of my family and friends. And I thought, this isn't a sustainable model, because they're like, how many of these damn books are you going to release? So, that you need the readers. They're your real bread and butter, because they're the ones that are waiting for that next issue and want to see what's going to happen. So I think you want to reach out to other creators. Don't think yourself an island. There's people out there, and more often than not, they're willing to help. Sure, there's some that have their hands out, like, oh, you want my advice on the Kickstarter? Well, you got to pay the $800 for the this or the that. And
Right.
my gosh, be leery, because the moment you launch a Kickstarter campaign, your email is going to be flooded with people saying that they're going to take you to the next level. And, all you got to do is commit to this much money. So watch yourself. Don't fall for the scams. Know that other creators are going to be a more powerful tool to share and get exposure to your project than these guys that are going to try to take your $500 in the process of doing it.
Exactly. You got to have something to show for the money that you're getting, not just because, it'll take someone like me, like an influencer, something like that, to go ahead and say, I'll post up and I'll do some shares for you. It's kind of like, yeah, that's not going to quite do it.
Yeah.
There has to be some kind of outreach to a different, target market that I'm not hitting.
Yeah.
So you
Not
got
the same groups I post in every day. That's what
exactly.
That's what they do. They're like, well, I'm going to hit this group, and this group. I'm like, yeah, I've shared to them so much, they're probably sick of my campaign by now. And if they didn't back it the first 7 times I shared it, I don't think the next 7 times you share it are going to make a difference.
Right. There is a way to help pop the algorithm if you know how to do it on there.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to really watch the metrics in order to do that.
Yeah.
So it adapts very quickly, is the best way I could put it. Almost weekly is what you're looking at on changing up. So, it may be a Monday where you think the best time to post, is there. And then the very next week, it'll change to Wednesday or something different. And you have to be able to jump and move, very quickly if you're watching the metrics that way. So that's something different, but being able to adapt is definitely huge in there. And you've already mentioned being able to reach out to other creators and adaptation is part of that as well, because you can't think, like you said, you're not, can't think of yourself as an island, because we're all kind of in this together. The best way that I can put this is my shows are all about trying to bring more of a spotlight to the indie portion of the industry for comics. Now, if you get enough people who are shining some flashlights and doing some things out there, that spotlight gets a lot bigger for everybody. It doesn't mean that, if I've got X, Y, and Z over here that, are refusing to do it because they want their own money over here. Well, that's good, great, and wonderful, and you're shining your own light. But if you've got all these other people all the way through up to those letters that are shining a light, they got a bigger opportunity to get a bigger piece of the pie just because they're all working together.
Yeah.
And my point is, with something like that, you have to really look at the team effort, but not get burned by it either. You've already mentioned about that as well. So it's a matter of sticking your neck out, but not sticking your neck out, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. You still got to be cautious. There's always people that will try to take advantage of you, and you have to, things are going to happen. And that's another thing you have to know is there are going to be speed bumps. No matter how perfectly planned and well laid out everything is, things are going to happen that are going to take you completely for a loop. And you can't plan for them because they're the unexpected. We had issue 6, had major snags because something happened with the artwork that created these almost checkerboard effects. So we had to re-letter the entire book and add some effects to make it so it didn't come out that way. I wasn't planning on that. I had released 5 issues. I thought this is as easy as get my proof, look through it, approve it, and move on. And instead it was another 2 months of back and forth and dealing with this issue. So don't think you know it all, because you never know it all. And that's when it's great to reach out. I reached out to another creator. He said, oh, I know what to do to fix that. Let me help you. So there's always someone out there who can help you, because it may be new to you, but someone else has already dealt with it.
Exactly. And we're going to help everyone out there right now, because we're going to go ahead and let Ed tell you why you need to go over there to this campaign right now and go ahead and see what's going on. I'm going to go ahead and put the link up here while he's talking, and he's going to go ahead and let you know exactly what to expect with Immortal Era. I'm going to give you full screen on this one.
All right. So Immortal Era, I'll give you the quick elevator pitch again. It's a post-apocalyptic story that takes place 200 years in the future in a world without death. So everyone in this world is immortal, but no one has powers or abilities. They still age, they still get sick, they just won't die. There's a character in our series who's just a decapitated head forced to live on. So a group of 5 people are out looking for relics so they can discover why people became immortal to begin with, because their ultimate goal is to restore the natural life cycle and save humanity by killing them. This story gives you fantasy aspects and horror aspects, as well as focusing on a family so we can see how family can survive even in the grimmest of situations. The campaign right now has the first 6 issues collected in a soft cover or hardcover trade, as well as issue 7 for those who want to just keep reading and not have to wait for anything else. So this one is special to me because honestly, when I first put out issue 1, I never thought I'd get to the point where I even needed to make a trade. So the fact that we're there and still moving forward is something that will constantly amaze me when I think about it. So please check this campaign out. Hopefully there's something there that will appeal to your needs, and check out my story. I would love if you read it.
And I will tell everyone right now, there is definitely something over there that will appeal to somebody. And definitely look at the character bios that are down there. Once you look at those, I'm telling you, you're going to start figuring out who you're going to start trying to follow in the stories. Even though they're all involved in there, you're going to see how this really pans out that way. I'm really trying not to say too much on this and give too much away.
No, you've been good. I think I spoiled more than you did.
It is definitely worth it. I cannot stress that enough. I mean, he's the creator. I am a fan and a follower, and I have backed this thing, and I am following this and all. And I'm telling you right now, get on the bandwagon, see what's going on, follow it right now, and see what's happening. And like you said, we're getting to a new story arc with this, so I'm excited to see where this is going to be going, because this is already taken me well past what I thought it was going to do. I mean, you read issue 1, you're already hooked. And a lot of times it's a one-off with some things that are out there. This one's like, okay, there's issue 2, and it's already done. I'm already done with this one. Where's 3? Come on, give me more, give me more. I can't get them fast enough at that point. I'm telling you right now, you cannot go wrong on this. Take a look at it. And remember, I cannot stress this enough to go ahead and end this thing, is it costs absolutely nothing to use the power of the finger, the correct one if you can, hit that share button and get this thing shared out. If you don't have the finances to go ahead and back it, nobody's going to go ahead and judge you about that by any means. Nobody can back absolutely everything. Trust me, I'm in that boat as well. But it costs nothing to hit that share button on there and go ahead and get it shared out so other people will know what's going on. And if you've already backed it, hit that share button as well, because it will pop that algorithm and go ahead and get it out there even faster so that everyone else will have a last chance to go ahead and see it as well, because we've got how many days left on this?
I think it still has about 3 weeks. So it's a week in. It was a week as of Tuesday. So
okay,
a little under 3 weeks left. So we still got plenty of time. We haven't hit goal yet, but we're 78% toward the goal. So I feel confident in what's going on, because I have a few backers that I know like to buy the CGC copies of the books that I have. So there's some of my people that they always wait till the last minute, but like you said, there's nothing stronger than you can't back it. Times are tight. Hit that share button, because you're going to have friends who've never heard of my book, and you're kind of exposing them to it. And hopefully if they share and you share, then enough people will see it and hopefully get it backed and funded so we can get issue 7 out and then issue 8 shortly after that.
Exactly. Ed, it's been an honor having you on here talking about this tonight and everything, and I could go on and on for hours talking to you about this, because it's a great series to talk about, and you're a great creator to find out more about with all of this. Go ahead and let us know one last time where they can find you, so they go ahead and make sure to follow where you are and find out about your new projects going on and see what you're doing, and find out how they can get on the bandwagon with all this.
All right, so my social media is under Finish Line Comics. So if you go to Twitter, if you go to Facebook, if you go to Instagram, look for Finish Line Comics, and there you'll get news about what's going on with Immortal Era. I also just put a sneak peek of the first page of Corruptor up in my story a few days ago on Instagram. So you'll be getting first looks at that story that's still not anywhere near release, but I'll be showing some of our non-spoilery pages of that throughout I'll put them in the story because I don't want them to sit there too long. So we'll see a lot of those sitting in my Instagram story. So keep your eyes on the stories, and you can see sneak peeks of Immortal Era 8. We're going to have the first artwork for Immortal Era 9 I'll be sharing out soon. So, and that's, that's, in my opinion, my favorite issue that I've written, because it's Father's backstory, and that's the issue I love most of all. But of course, you always love what you just did most, and you think about what you did in the beginning, and, oh, I could make that a little better if I tweaked it this way or that. But I'm not going to Lucas my stuff, so I'm leaving it alone.
That is perfect. Well, again, thank you for being here. I'm going to go ahead and drop you backstage now. If you want to hang out, I'm going to finish up my closing statements. I'll be out there shortly.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you. All right. So we had Ed Davis up here. We had a great conversation about Immortal Era and the campaign that is live right now. This is a series that you do not want to sleep on. You want to make sure that you follow what's going on with this. I talk about a lot of them that I really enjoy, and ones that I really recommend. This is definitely one of those to do that, because it has something for just about everybody. But I do want to go ahead and let everybody know that it is a mature rated comic because of, I mean, there's some serious violence in there. You got cannibals, and then there's of course language, and then there's a couple other issues in there, but not anything extremely huge. But that's why they had to throw the mature on there. But I'm just letting everybody know this is not a Christmas gift for a little 4-year-old Johnny. Just make sure you're not doing that. But okay, going out from that, I always have a closing statement. Tonight's not going to be any different. It's always about my guest and something that was said on there. It's usually based on one word. And I'm going to go ahead and go with adaptation for the word on this one. We kind of discussed about that in a little bit of length tonight. You have to be able to change what you're doing in order to grow, in order to evolve. Too many people get stuck in their ways, and they decide that what they've got going is the best way it could possibly be, and it'll never get better. And that may or may not be true, but the only way you're going to find out is if you actually go ahead and adapt and see what's going to happen. Dip that toe in the water, see what's going to happen with that. But don't be afraid to reach out to other people and find out what they say about it as well. You don't want to be in the quiet about this. You want to make sure that you actually kind of poll the masses, whether it be co-creators, whether it be followers, fans, influencers, whatever you got to reach out to. And that's in the comic industry. But in life, just make sure, if you're going to be doing something, see what you can do to improve on it. See what you can always do to go ahead and adapt and change things up. Change is not always bad. Change is just something that your perspective is on that. So that's the closing statement for tonight. Thank y'all for being here. And remember, if y'all enjoy everything that you're seeing on here, please remember to like, subscribe, and share today. Catch us over on YouTube channel for all the content we got going over there. Again, thank you very much for being here. I certainly appreciate it. And we're going to go ahead and close this one for today, but I will see you on the next time we have a hell of a show. We'll have a hell of a time with a hell of a guest. Keep it indie, y'all.
Sockets, flip the switch and watch them run. Oh!